Okay, folks, one more video on this. The UFO seen on stereo behind Core 1 is just a piece of dust or debris on the lens. That's all it is. There's a field lens with an occulting stem that blocks the sun's light, and that lens, the front surface of it, has some debris on it that causes these artifacts. This is a paper here about the background subtraction process for the Core 1 telescope and optimal ways of doing it for certain features. But they specifically mention these artifacts here in these raw images. These images are from 2008, and you can still see there's our offending dust mote right there. There's our boy. These others are still being properly subtracted for, but this one is not, and that's because it moved just a little bit. And when it did that, the calibration image was no longer properly aligned and no longer able to properly subtract for it. Says these artifacts have been determined to be caused by features on or near the front surface of the field lens, probably created during the processing of the lens to attach the occulter stem. Now here's a diagram showing the field lens and the occulter stem. This is what blocks the sun from the image. And the field lens is right here. It's actually all one piece, essentially. It's attached physically. And the dust or debris is somewhere on the front of this field lens. And that's all it is. And it's always been there. Here are images from 2008. There it is, before subtraction, before any calibration has taken place. That's it, right there. Now, in the latest images, it has moved just a little bit, enough to throw off the calibration process. So, when you look at the raw images before trying to calibrate them, that's what it looks like. And it's just a classic bokeh shape for an optic with a central obstruction. Normally, in most cases, you're going to be dealing with a folded optical design, a catadioptric of some sort that causes a shape like that. In this case, it's because you have that occulter, which is acting as a central obstruction. So the reason is a little bit different, but the end result is the same in terms of the shape of the defocused light. It's just a point-like light source. If it were in focus, it would just be a dot. But because it's defocused, it takes on the shape of the optics. The same way stars do in a telescope with a folded optic if they're defocused. It's the same thing. Look there. You can see the same shape. That's all it is. And this is from a telescope looking at stars that are defocused, but the same principle applies regardless of what the point-like light source is. And that's all it is. And it doesn't look like the UFO you see in the processed images until you do the processing. But that doesn't mean that's what it really looks like. That just means that's what it looks like after you've processed the image inappropriately. That's what happens because the dust has moved a little bit. And so now when you subtract a calibration frame, a median combined image from the previous day, June 16th, from the image from June 17th, you end up with this UFO. So I'm going to subtract it here. Now before I did all this, before I subtract the median combined image, all this right here is a highly contrast enhanced version to bring out that particular dust mode and the others along with it. You can see the same effects. But I did a dynamic background subtraction here in PixInsight to produce this. So if you're wondering why it doesn't look like the raw image did before, that's why. And that's to really bring out the shape and show you that it really is just the same thing as this. It's just a defocused point-like light source. That's all it is. So when I do the subtraction, you get the UFO. The others disappear because they haven't moved, and you end up with your UFO here, which appears to be illuminated by the sun. It's not actually illuminated by the sun in the way you're thinking. It is sunlight that's being diffusely reflected into the optic, but it's not a ship out in space reflecting sunlight. That's just how the shape has taken its form after the subtraction has occurred. Before, after. Before, after. Okay? It's just that the dust mote has moved just a little, just enough to throw off that subtraction process, and has formed this quote-unquote UFO, which is not a UFO. It's just a piece of dust on the field lens. That's all it is. It's always been there. And if I were to continue to use this median image to subtract from future images, I could continue to see this even after it disappears in the processed images. I have a prediction to make. in a few days, I don't know exactly when, it depends on the cadence of when they update their calibration frames, but in a few days at least, maybe a month at the longest, the UFO is going to disappear from the processed images. Suddenly. And when that happens, I will be able to take the raw images from after it has disappeared and use this being combined image from before it moved and subtract from the current images where in the processed JPEGs you'll see online it's not there anymore, but I'll be able to make it reappear like magic. Because that's all it is. I'm making a prediction here. I can do that because I understand what's going on. You see, that's how it works. When you understand what's going on, you can make predictions like that. So, mark my words. After it vanishes from the processed JPEGs here in a few days, I'll make it reappear. And I'll do another video. And watch, I'll uncover NASA's cover-up of the dust. Like magic.